All right, welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. President Cyril Ramaphosa says Parliament will urgently table a special appropriations bill to help cash-strapped Eskom. The bill will allocate a significant portion of the 230 billion rent the power utility requires. He also urged South Africans to pay for their electricity.
Eskom is also working with government and other stakeholders to address its broad restructuring plan, which we announced, as well as its overall debt, including the debt that is owed by municipalities as well as individuals. As a country, we must assert the principle that those who use electricity must pay for the electricity that they use. Failure to pay endangers our entire electricity supply, our economy, and our efforts to create jobs. Now, the days of boycotting payments are over. This is now the time to build, and it is the time for all of us to make our contribution. So we call on all our people who use electricity, let us pay up.
All right, let's get more reaction to President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address. And we have with us CEO Mr. Mdu Zakwe, who is the Media Information and Communication Technologies, CEO known as the MIC CETA. Well, sir, thank you very much for coming to our program. Firstly, what's your reaction to the speech?
I think the speech reassured South Africans that we understand what the problems are of our youth. Our youth want to become employers, but they need to be empowered. I appreciate the fact that the president wanted to give the youth an opportunity for them to take their creative ideas to create industries, and he understands that we need to empower the youth. Unfortunately, the incubation value chain in this country has not been configured to produce the Googles, the Apples, and all these big multinationals. And we never see angel investors close to our innovation hubs, and we need to correct that. I also understand that, in order for us to be able to create jobs, we need to empower these young ones to be able to create these industries. But in this country, we're not very good on takeoff agreements, for instance. As CETAs, we train the youth, we give them the technical abilities, and they do and play around with those skills, but there's no takeoff in what they do. If you look at the imports we have in this country, on ICT goods alone, the imports are forever going up. The exports are stagnant. A South African youth gets excited to tell his parent about the next iPhone. Do you think the American child is also excited to tell his parents about the next iPhone produced here? Mm-hmm. We need to change the mentality and say the youth of this country cannot wait for the youth of other countries to do things for them. And it's very key that as government, we start taking the creations of our youth seriously and start buying local. It should not only end on a speech, it should not only end on books, it must happen. If you are an innovator in this country, you have to line up like everybody else who've been in the industry for 100 years to get a slice of this economy. And I think countries like China have done very well in supporting their own local companies to become global multinationals. If you follow the story of how Huawei started and where Huawei is now, it was through the support of its own government. And our government needs to start thinking like that so that the value chain of creating the youth with technical abilities, it's complete.
But then, let me come in then as far as driving the project of innovation in as far as CETAs are concerned. You just newly appointed and you have to hit the ground running. How are you going to really implement the issue of innovation? And I'm asking this in line with really the poor pass mark we have in this country. For example, children have to pass at 30% in their grades. How is this going to enable you to really kickstart this project of having our children to innovate with the level of education that they have?
I think that's a very important point. You talk 4IR and you've got two types of schools. You've got a kid who comes from Ekunu, the rural village of Ekunu, and you've got a kid that comes from Steyn City College. Okay, Steyn City College, you've got desks that have got digitized notebooks where you can even call the author. okay? And the kid from Nkomo doesn't even know what a mouse looks like. And you're talking 4IR. So we've got inequities in our education system. And that's a very, very valid point. And that's why we advocate for taking these technologies right to childhood level, whereby we can assist these kids get into understanding just the elements, the basic setup of these technologies, because that's what sparks the interest. Later, things that were done visually when you were growing up, it will always stays with you. I remember when I was doing Standard 8, we went to a Simba Chips factory where they make Simba Chips to teach us about 4 factors of production. That has always stayed in my mind because it was practicalized when I was young. And I think there are things that are going up in terms of the future jobs that are going to be needed into this country, Internet of Things, etc. We need to start looking at basic concepts where we can implant such discipline at a very young age as the kids grow up. You buy an iPhone and you give it to your kid on Friday. On Sunday, the kid will be teaching you the iPhone. There is no need for us to doubt the capability and the power of these kids, of their brains. It's like supercomputers. And I think we need to harness that. As a nation, we need to harness that. So it's very important that we look at the subject makeup that we have in this country, like geography and all these other subjects, and ask ourselves, are they still serving this economy? If teaching geography will create 7% GDP, then let's continue teaching geography. But if not, let's do something else.
Now, doing something else in as far as taking all these innovative skills to the children in rural areas, you look at the kind of subjects that are taught there. You look at accessibility to internet, even phones, even data, even computers. It's not really accessible like kids who are in the cities. So these equities are not really being removed. Inequality is there and we see it on a daily basis. Then is this not frustrating the purpose of your SETA to address the problem of innovation?
Well, I think one of the things I appreciate about the president is that he has merged certain departments, which means he's willing to break down silos in government. I think that's thumbs up for him. I also heard that there will be a bill, a special bill that will be for the license, auctioning of the spectrum, which I think it needs to be done because we need to start making sure that accessibility happens within our rural villages. What we are doing as a SETA is to make sure that we introduce e-learning, for instance, that can sit on platforms of Vodacom, of MTN, of all these companies, because I strongly believe that Vodacom, MTN, Cell C, they do believe that an African child cannot be constrained towards accessing education because of cost of data.
Just on a parting shot, entrepreneurial abilities of young people, where are you going to start them as SETAs for them to know that the slogan of being a job creator and not a job seeker is promulgated?
Absolutely. One of the things we've realized that not everybody wants to become an employee. Some people want to become employers. So we are devising a program of hand-holding entrepreneurs from a dream to being a businessman. And that's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on. But for those who want to become entrepreneurs, we'll give them complete skill set. We can give you a technical ability, but we also need to make sure that you know how to do a business plan, you know how to do financial planning, costing, marketing, and all those things, so that you become a truly great entrepreneur and you have some chance of success in your journey.
All right. Thank you very much for making time for us.
Much appreciated.
Okay. Well, we have here the CEO of MIC SETA, who's Mdu Zakwe, and of course talking to us about his impression of the president's speech in regards to youth development in the country. We're going to take a